Hi, it's Nico. Today we're going to look at a review of one of my own games. This is something that... Is this recording? Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to look at one of my own games, which is something that has been requested in one of the YouTube videos. And I picked this game. I don't think it's a particularly good or bad game, but it showcases a lot of things that I like to talk about with some of my students. So, sort of how do I approach a lot of these topics? So I'm white in this game. This is on PandaNet against someone equal rank. This is more or less sort of just standard opening stuff, nothing particularly interesting. It is kind of... There is something about this black shape here, where it's actually full of cutting points, sort of around like A and B and stuff. It's a little weak here, and also it doesn't have eye space, right? There's no, like, if there's a black stone over here somewhere, then the group would actually really do a lot of work. But when I play here, there's sort of the feeling that I almost want to defend on this side because it can get weak, but then there's sort of, you know, kind of unpleasant. So black does it the other way around. Black plays here, but the effect is that this group is getting a little weaker as white gets stronger here. And black does this, this move makes a lot of sense because it's sort of protecting this group and surrounding this one. But I do want to point out here that as white does this, this group gets stronger means this group here gets weaker, right? But it still isn't quite possible for me to attack the group. Mostly because I have a substantial weakness here. So if I try to do anything, you know, there's always this, and it's very hard for me to fight this out. There's the, you know, the empty triangle or this jump. There's a lot of moves here that are very difficult to make sure the fight keeps going, right? Because I'm too weak. So also on the other hand, black is building this really large area here on the left, and sort of my first instinct in this position was actually to stand like this, but precisely because of this cut, it's a little bit scary. Now that I'm looking at it, it actually probably isn't so bad. I've got techniques like this one, and this cut can be a problem. But instead of that, I was sort of interested in the left side. And in particular, the left side can be broken. The reason why the left side is interesting to break, it's not because the left side is getting big. I mean, that's significant, but primarily this cutting stone means that it's possible for white to fight back here. If I get a weak group that's running, sort of, you know, vaguely, well, I played here, and the idea is that if I have a weak group that's running in this direction, it's going to be able, I'm going to be able to cut off this piece and run with it. So black has to be careful in order to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, this is a really good move by black. It's both defending this group and it's threatening this double Atari and all this stuff. And I mostly have no choice but to defend. And then black plays this Atari. And this is a really interesting one. So I think for some people, connecting here is completely automatic. But it's not the case for me. For me, there's a really significant significant observation, which is that this is not actually threatening to kill my group. And since it's not threatening to kill my group, I could actually get the first move in the corner. But then's when the situation comes in that when black captures, black completely connects these stones in Sente. And he also gets to defend this group probably in Sente, right? And essentially, he gets out of all of his problems in exchange for some territory in the corner where he can actually still fight back. Like, I'm not 100% alive here quite yet. But the most important part of this story is that I'm trying to fight against this group and against this. And there's this cut that black has to worry about. So even though when my group is not gonna die, the fight is gone from it. And there's no damage ever happening to any of black's groups. And it comes in Sente for black. So black can completely fix all of his problems. So essentially what I'm saying is that this stone is required in order to make this cut active. and also in order to stabilize the A group enough to do damage to the black group here. And that's the important point. The triangle stone is an important stone in order to keep black weak. So the connection keeps black weak, it keeps the cut active, and it keeps this group as a target for me. Now, since I didn't play in the corner, black does. Just makes perfect sense, I think. And it's also very notable that black plays this move. It makes quite a lot of sense to me. If black were to play some kind of hane, which probably is something a lot of people might ask me about, it gives me more forcing moves. This kind of forcing move, or this kind of forcing move. And there's a possibility that black can get into trouble here. Maybe I'll pull out first, but if this kind of thing happens, this cut can become a real issue. So instead of trying to force the issue, he instead makes this very solid shape because he wants to fight. And when you want to fight in an area, you much rather have solid shapes. This is a move you'd play to make more efficient area and try to make more territory or something, but that's not what black's trying to do. He's trying to actually damage my stone. Now, I play this lighter move because I'm not actually in a position to fight back directly against black. I just have this stone here as a thorn in black's side, which he's going to have to worry about in order to make the attack valid. So he wedges here, which is a kind of a common technique. And here's the first point, which I think is sort of, again, pretty important from the perspective of, how do you fight back in this area? I think probably a lot of my viewers might be interested in directly connecting one of these 2 points with the idea that I'm going to activate this stone. But it's really important to notice the black shapes, so say the shape of the A group, the shape of the B group, the shape of the C group, they're all very, very solid shapes. They don't have very many forcing moves against them. Black's done a very good job of preventing that from ever being possible. And my shape is just full of holes everywhere. Like nothing's connected at any point. So because of that, it's very hard for me to fight locally. I can't really try and fight back right here. But what I can do is I can run lightly. Particularly because I think the only real place on this side of the board where black has any local trouble is here. So I'm playing near that group. And black comes in to try to cut. And what happens is I'm actually going to sacrifice all of this in order to make a strong shape in this area, which is the only thing I'm ever trying to do. And it's important to keep in mind that when I enter this area, I'm not trying to live with this stone. And when I follow here, I'm also not trying to live with this stone. Neither of these stones is supposed to live. Their job is to prevent this black area from becoming an entirely large, completely controlled territory, and to find some kind of shape that is able to fight back. And the ability to fight back is very important for this to make any sense. So what allows me to be able to fight back is this cutting point and this area B. So when we jump out here, I'm going to build a shape that's able to fight back. Black cuts. This connection is not to save these stones. That's not at all what it's about. The connection is to gain liberties. Why do I want to gain liberties? I want to gain liberties because I really want these forcing moves against the black group. So when black connects here, now I play this way, and I've gained both of these moves in Sente. And black has to capture. Now, I would like to sort of show you what this shape looks like. This is now a solidly connecting shape, and it's also facing the outside. Furthermore, it is right next to substantial white weakness. So these are all very, very desirable things for this group. And it probably would make sense to defend this group further. But at this point, I'm starting to think that I've been aiming at this black group the whole time. Right? So, it is possible maybe that black could counterattack. So what I actually played is here. And it's possible that maybe black could counterattack and try to surround me, but I just sort of like to point out This is something that I talk about with my students. I've started to come up with a name for this. I call it the angry soccer mom defense. So essentially, the issue is that in order to try to capture this group, black leaves many local weaknesses, right? And what I'm going to do is it's called this angry soccer mom defense. I'm pointing out that black's local weaknesses can be used to make life for these stones if required. So essentially, I just annoy and pester black. This is why I call it the angry soccer mom defense. I annoy and pester these weaknesses until he has to allow me to live. So you can sort of think of this as, I'm going to speak to your manager, and my son did nothing wrong, and, you keep bothering this group until you realize that you can actually just make eyes. And there's also, that might not necessarily be a good thing to do, but of course, remember, I'm attacking black on the right also. So, black does jump, and it's important to note that he jumps with a small jump instead of the large one. I think this is a better idea. And I come out, and this is important, I'm coming out in a way that tries to apply maximum pressure to this group, because I think that my group is actually stable. Because I still have so many forcing moves against black. And black plays this, and I'm really, really interested in seeing if I can damage this group. Which is why I play from this side, which is normally possibly a little bit dangerous, right? I would always say you play from the weak side. So the question, I guess, it's important that I like to talk about being color agnostic here. You could very much think that the weak side is the A group, because that's my weak group. But the B group is black's weak group, and you have to sort of think a little bit about which of these two sides is weaker. And what's important to keep in mind, if you look at the groups that the B group is fighting against, these are all pretty solid, and it's very hard for black to ever fight back against them, whereas the groups that I'm fighting against have all these gaps in them. And also that involves this thing, which can also be bothered a little bit. You can't actually pull out the B stone, the C stone. It is dead, but it has a lot of agi, which which you can use to annoy black. Just for instance, we have all this other techniques which I used to mention, but we also have stuff like this, which can be make eye space or something if required. You can combine it with this. So it's very difficult to actually kill this group. So because of that, I'm willing to play from this side in order to exert maximum pressure on this group. And if black wants to sort of abuse this group, he has to not connect here. This is sort of locally very painful. The shape is terrible. Just sort of a general threat that white has in this shape looks something like this. Let's just sort of give you an idea of just how wrung out this shape can become. So because of this, black tries to fight back here, but I get to make one of the stronger shapes you're ever going to see here, this sort of double panuki, right next to black's weak group. And black connects here, and sort of here's an important decision. There is sort of the question in my mind, do I actually want to sacrifice this triangle group in order to attack black on the right side? And the eventual conclusion I came up with was no. And the important reason for this, I do believe that the triangle group is actually quite valuable. And the reason why it's valuable is because black has all of these weaknesses on here. And so if the group comes out, black is going to have some trouble protecting himself. Also, this black group still at some point can be bothered further by threatening to bring out this square stone. So I just decided to come out, and as we come out, we realize that it's very hard for black to attack me because he has so many weaknesses of his own. So while he's busy defending himself, he's not attacking me. And we can see this taking place, and we can see as black maybe tries to surround me here. But he has so many weaknesses on the left, he's just not going to work. And at this point, black decided that probably it's not worth it to keep trying, and I agree. And black plays this move to defend this group, and this is a point where I blunder. This is just a complete flop for me. For some reason, I thought that this was a real threat, that he was trying to do something with this stone. This does not threaten to cut me. If I were to play away, which I probably should, I think AI wanted me to do this, but my style is maybe more like this, attack the whole group. The point is that black's not really threatening to cut at all. There's just nothing. So, you know, there's no reason for me to play this move and capture the stone. It gives me an eye, but I already have a double Panuki. This group is pretty strong. So there's no reason to play like this, and it gives black additional time to defend this group. I'm pretty sure at this point, if I play something like the AI suggestion, or like mine, white should be pretty well ahead. Because essentially, white's not actually weak here. Because black has too many weaknesses nearby, and black is weak here because black is so solid nearby, and there's nothing much forcing against white. So instead I defend here, and it gives black additional time to defend this group. This is a little bit of a flop for me, but I still follow more or less the same plan, which is to apply pressure to the whole group. And black continues to play up here. And this does put pressure on my stones, so I defend them. Oh no, I don't. I forgot. Yes, I realize that these stones are strong enough because black keeps having these weaknesses in the center. And it's sort of, again, sort of the angry soccer mom idea. Actually, this actually happens, so we can see it. But, you know, you have all of this forcing stuff. And actually, black can even get in trouble here if he insists on trying to attack me. So, instead of pushing this way, this is one way to do it. It's sort of the simpler approach. But I do like this other idea because there's a real threat of the Atari at A. I don't think anyone really wants to get hit with that Atari. But black realizes that the threat to these stones is too strong, and he allows me to give this Atari. It's very painful for him. And this, I think, is another mistake on my part. I probably should extend to here. There is no cut here. It just doesn't work. If even this doesn't help, the stones are just dead. So instead of that, I was a little worried because black has the Atari in Sente, so I connect this way. And this does allow black to do some damage to the top. So black goes for it. I think this is a good opportunity for black here to do some real damage. And the move he has to play is probably this one, which makes Mii of sort of jumping into the corner and cutting here. But instead of that, black goes directly for the cut, and what I can do is I can just live in the corner. And when I'm alive in the corner, this cutting stone, it's now sort of weak. Probably it should be sacrificed because it's only cutting apart stuff that's alive. But it makes sense that black would want to pull it out because otherwise why did he play it to begin with? But what happens is that when I come out here, this is really a problem for black because he's kind of weak on both sides. And my group should now be very clear that it's completely fine. This is an important concept here, something I talk about with my students very frequently. Black is so weak here that white cannot be also weak. Right? It's impossible for both players to be weak in the same area. And what's happening here is that essentially white does look superficially like he's being sort of bullied by black, but if you observe, black is weaker than white is. So this is like being intimidated by a child in a wheelchair or something. There's no substantial threat against the white group. Despite how scary the situation might look, the opponent just isn't intimidating. So black comes out and I come out, and these stones here are being just terribly isolated, and they're getting into some trouble. At this point, black realizes that I've actually been applying quite a lot of pressure to this group. I did consider at some point when black attacks here to just ignore it and try and kill this, but these stones are still quite valuable because of all the black weaknesses. they're still soldiers. They're still able to do quite a lot of damage to black. They're not just territory. Black has weaknesses here and here. An important thing to realize is that, for instance, at some point white can invade here, and it's quite a problem here. There's sort of a miai of connecting this way and this double peep and connecting over here. It's very hard for black to kill this stone, and it might be there or it could also be here. There's a lot of problems in the black shape, and these problems are brought about by this white group. So the value of the white group is much beyond the stones themselves. There's a value in the ability to damage the black position. And as it comes out, the ability to damage the black position of this group increases because black is weak here and here also. So these stones are really serious warriors. Whereas these black stones, it's really important to keep in mind, despite how big they look superficially, they're not strategically that important. And what I mean by that is that white's really solid all around, which makes them A, hard to defend because there's no weaknesses to poke at, and B, their value is primarily restricted to only the territory. So there's no way I'm ever going to trade these stones for these ones. So black comes out, and I come out, and as we see, white's gaining more and more strength in the center in exchange for this black group's life. And here black made some additional defensive moves, and now is the time when I decide that I'm just going to capture this. And at this point I'm pretty sure that these stones are just dead. And this gives white really substantial territory in the center. Now, it was pointed out by AI, and I agree with it, that this is probably not the best move. And I'll explain why in a second, but it's something I want to sort of keep in mind that this is about an AI thing, and I'm a human. And the AI says that white can make a bigger win from a different perspective. There's a way to get more points out of this position than by just capturing these three stones. Because these three stones are super weak, they're super hard to make anything out of anyway. But from a human perspective, what this does is it means I'm never going to have to worry about the A group at all, ever again. So it simplifies the position in my favor. And it is important to realize that this sacrifice here, which might have looked big sort of when I first did it, there's probably a chance that when you saw white sack these three stones, that it feels like black's getting something really big in this corner. But when you see the game further along, you might realize that white has completely managed to compensate for this corner capturing the center. And white's also got stuff here, and white's also got stuff here. So this corner is most of what black has in this entire game. Now, what's the best move? I think it's kind of obvious when it's pointed out to me that probably here is substantially better. Why? Because these stones are very annoying to defend and not doing nearly as much, whereas these stones at the top, this is also threatening them very severely, and they probably cannot be sacrificed, and white can just come back and eat these later. And this is a very strong move. It takes points. It damages black. It's very hard to imagine black saving both of these groups. There's a good chance that the top actually dies. The top is more valuable than the center anyway. Please note that white capturing the top is also good enough to make sure that my center group never has to worry about anything, because if I capture the top, it's alive. But this is a simple way that introduces much less variability to the game. It keeps the game very simple. Now here, I was completely convinced that I was alive here. And AI actually points out a sequence which I missed, which I'm not even going to go into. It's a little bit complicated. I'll show you how I thought I was alive, which is essentially this move. And AI points out that it's possible for black to fight back here and make a big mess. And the corner actually dies, but white connects out this way, and AI tells me that I'm winning that way also. This is a bigger and simpler win, the way this is played, which is just, I just live. So I have an eye here, and I'm going to make an eye from capturing this stone. And at this point, black has little to do but try to start the endgame. This is a very large endgame point. But it is important to realize that there's still quite a lot of weakness in this black area. So AI is actually suggesting this kind of move, which helps reinforce black instead of getting black into potential trouble. And here, probably I can fight back like this, but again, sort of a human move, just keep things simple. Just capture the stone, stay alive. Here's some forcing moves that I can make. And after making these exchanges, once again, my group is like mostly completely alive. So this move is not really required, but it does put some pressure on the black group, and I'm just trying to simplify the game because I know I'm winning. So black stretches out to here. And at this point, there's many ways to clean up the game, and I think this is mostly reaching the end game phase. So I'm close to the point of finishing the review, but there is one more thing I would like to show you. And it's going to come a little later. It's right around here. And the thing I would just like you to observe is how black has some weaknesses here, and weaknesses here, and weaknesses here. So the connection of this stone, when black tries to push this way, is not very good. And the important thing to realize is that none of these connections individually is necessarily that bad. All of these weaknesses are things black can handle. But just because black can handle them individually doesn't mean he can handle all of them at once. And when I strike, this is a move that a concept that I picked up from Chris Sagner. He likes to talk about this as sort of a hinge stone, where there's several weaknesses all connected to the same stone. And he suggests sort of immediately playing a contact move against that. So that's what I did. And there's some stuff that happens here, blah, blah. And as we can see, black is actually running into multiple weaknesses all at once. Now, I handled this, again, in an extremely simple way. There's probably a lot more damage that can be done, but this is good enough. I just claim the whole center, capture one of the stones involved. Here's just some sort of additional fighting. It's not quite endgame, but black is actually quite dead in the center. And once I live here, this really is endgame phase now. Yeah, the main topics that I wanted to sort of point out in this game, probably the important ones, are sort of in the opening, how building up strength in this area is damaging this black group. And it makes a lot of sense to continue to defend this side, even as black makes this, because there's such a strong counterattack. There's a good chance that a move like this is strong, even if I have to deal with this, because black is so weak here. And there's an argument to be made, probably, that the best answer to when I invade here is actually just to follow like this and defend all of the groups, sort of connect them up. And no matter what I do in the corner, that's less important. But also when that's actually what black does. Oh, okay, that's actually what black does. Yeah, so it's probably the right choice. And there's an argument made you should just keep going. There's also the important issue of how this stone, the important part of it, is to be able to fight back in the area, and not necessarily the life or death of the stone itself. When I invade here, I'm not necessarily hoping that this stone is going to live. I'm just hoping that I'm going to generate enough black weakness that I will be able to fight back. And that's an important concept. Probably this move follows that same line. And then when we get to this point, an important concept is sort of understanding how I don't want to make the trade for the black group for the white group, because the white group is more valuable than the black group. And the reason why it's so valuable is because there's additional weaknesses in the black shape that I continue to want to exploit. A lot of people want to compare these two groups. A lot of my students have had this issue where they want to compare these two groups, the white one and the black one. Sort of get rid of some of these symbols so we can make it clear what I'm talking about. Right, so let's get rid of that one and these one and this one and this one. So you could compare the white triangle group to the black square group in the notion of how large of a capture it is. And you might think that the square group maybe even looks like a larger capture than the triangle group. But that's really not the issue. The issue is the ability of this triangle group to fight back against the surrounding black stones makes it a more appealing fight. It makes it more interesting to try to fight with it. Whereas black can't really fight back, and even when I blunder here and completely lose a move, the group still can't really fight back, and it's still weak. And it still gets bullied to within an inch of its life. So the black group ends up being really bad, essentially. Whereas the white group, even though it sort of gets surrounded, actually turns out to be very good. This becomes fundamentally a wall, and end up cutting off and killing this stone, which is the aggressor. And black never has a chance to do anything like that in this area. So those are sort of what I think are the highlights here. And I think that's sort of the review for today. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you on another occasion.